Today we're going to be talking about how to recreate one of the most sought-after sounds in music production, and that is the vintage vibe of 1970s and 1980s classic rock. We all know it when we hear it. There's a reason that we still listen to early Black Sabbath, early Iron Maiden, early Metallica, and it's not just because those bands were amazing, it's because there was a very specific sound associated with that era because of the gear that they were recording through. And what's interesting, it's actually hard to replicate that now digitally because everything digital makes everything sound kind of perfect. However, there is a way. We're going to replicate the exact signal chain used at studios like Abbey Road, for instance, using plugins only in the box. And I'm going to walk you through from start to finish the taking of a demo and turning it into a stream-ready master using exclusively techniques that were popular in the 1970s to give it that quality that we all know and love. So the band is Grim Discipline. It's a black and metal act that I really love. I'll put the link to their music in the description. It's a brand new song of theirs. I'm going to show you the demo that we started with and then where we got to in a pursuit of that 1970s sound. So here's the demo. And here's where we wound up. Okay, so I'm going to take you through it step by step. But before I do that, if you like content like this, please consider liking the video. It'll make it easier for people like you to find videos like this one. And if you're getting value out of this today, also please consider subscribing to the channel. You'll be notified in advance every time a new video like this comes out, and you can continue coming and, sharing the production love. So I'm going to hand you off to Andrew to tell you a little bit about the project, and then we're going to jump right into Logic and get started.
Hey guys, it's Andrew from Grim Discipline. Very friendly Dave's got a special treat for y'all tonight. He's gonna mix an unreleased song called Dragon Bitch. I wrote it about a dragon that just doesn't know when to quit. If you're a big fan of Merciful Fate, Dissection, Paul Di'Anno era Iron Maiden, 70s Scorpion, 70s Judas Priest, you'll dig it. So sit back, enjoy the show.
I actually really like this mix, the demo that I got. I love grimy productions like that, but the target that Andrew said he was looking for is a 1970s classic metal vibe, an 80s thrash vibe, and for the vocals, maybe a 90s black metal vibe like Dissection. So I had a really long version of this video I shot where I literally went soup to nuts on everything. It wound up being 2 hours long. So I figured I would just give you the brass tacks instead and show you all the plugins I'm using to get the finished product sound that we're going to be hearing later today, and all the decisions I make in the settings and whatnot. So what you just heard is not the finished final mix of the song that I did. That is just the bass tone to get started. And what I did is I replicated an analog studio signal chain that would be exactly the kind of signal chain that a vintage British rock band would use so that I could get that vintage 1970s sound. So we're going to be focused on really dialing the tone up front, creating a template for the project, doing as much work up front to get the tones right and being really painstaking so that the actual mixing is not all that hard. And if we were in a, Abbey Road or one of those really popular 1970s British studios, this is the kind of signal chain we would have. So we'd have individual track sources like a rhythm guitar or a snare drum. Those would be hitting preamps. In this case, this is a very Neve heavy, very tape heavy, very, analog oriented project that I have set up. So we're going to be using the Neve 1073 for the preamp. It's one of the most famous preamps of all time. We're going to be using the built-in EQ as much as possible. We're going to cheat a little bit, but we're really going to try to stick to the script with what they did in these analog studios. So they would play through the preamp. The preamp would go straight into an outboard compressor. So there's none of this compressor goes last on the track. You had to commit to the compressor right off the bat, right after the preamp. That then would get summed up to a bus, right? So you have two rhythm guitars, those go to a rhythm guitar bus, and that bus would then get recorded to tape. This is how you would sum in an analog studio, right? You'd have to send 3 or 4 channels to one tape recording, and then you would take that tape and run it back through the console to do your actual mixing. So that's the difference between tracking and mixing in an analog environment. So what that means is when we get to the bus stage, we're going to be applying tape to every single instrument bus as if we're recording individual instruments to tape. We're using the Studer A800 for that. We're going to apply some bus compression just like you would on the analog console. We're then going to sum again to the mix bus, meaning now we've printed to one tape. We're going to send that tape back through to sum it to a 2 bus, a stereo left and right on the mix bus, going through another preamp, in this case, the Lindell 50, which is very similar to the Neve, so it worked well. It's a mix bus compression, all of our mix bus stuff, mix bus tape, because that's the tape recording that you're getting on the mix bus, then through our compression, the other stuff on the on the mix bus. So we're going to try and be as faithful as possible to that 1970 sound, and I'm going to walk you through exactly how we're doing that. So the first thing we're going to start with is the drums. The tone target that I had for the drums on this project is Phil Collins' Easy Lover, which is a great song with great sounding drums. Before I pull up the drum sound, I just want you to see we have my analog signal chain all built out right out of the bat, right off the bat, right? So we have our Neve preamp. Here's the settings I have dialed for the kick drum. The kick sounds like this. So it's got that kind of Neve-y retro vibe. These are very subtle effects that you're only going to notice when they add up all together. So we have our Neve on our snare. We're going straight from a Neve to a compressor. We're actually doing that on the kick, just like you would in an analog chain. On the toms, we're just doing, let me grab this over to the other tom. We're just doing the same thing here. We got Neves into compression, 1176 on all the shells. And the only area that I kind of like verged from the beaten path here is for the hi-hats, the overheads, and the rooms. I'm using different analog colors. So instead of going through a Neve, I'm going through an API 560 on the hats and the overheads. On the rooms, I'm going through an SSL 4000E. So across the references, we have like 1970s Scorpions, 1970s Judas Priest, like British Steel. There's, basically Neve was the way to do it back then. But then in the 1980s, on the Metallica stuff, Kill 'Em All, and the later stuff that would come, certainly on the 1990s music, SSL was very popular then. And it's just nicer on the cymbals. So that's what we're doing there. And if you go through the rest of these, on the bass, I have 3 dupe tracks. I'll show you why in a minute. It's all Neve everywhere. And if you look at the bus, you'll see we have this Studer A800 tape on every single bus, replicating that printing process. We have some bus saturation and so on. So we'll go through all of it. Let's just solo the drums here. So this is before wet effects and everything else. Sounds like we left some wet effects on the tom, so we'll kill that. This is just a dry drum kit running through the analog chain that I just walked you through. The mix bus compressor I have on the drum bus here is a Chandler Zener limiter. I'll pull that up again so you can look at the settings. This is a great vintage bus compressor. I'm using Comp 2. The second compressor on this model is much more aggressive. I'm getting 4 decibels of gain reduction. Relatively fast attack, but not too fast. I want to get those transients in there, right? 4 decibels gain reduction. So that's how I have this set up. We'll go drum by drum, but I want to show you the drum kit first. So tone target, Phil Collins, Easy Lover. And what I've done in Superior Drummer 3 here is this is a MIDI drum track. I've taken that MIDI file and I've loaded it with basically the exact kit that Phil Collins was playing. So we have pearl shells here. We have some nice splashy cymbals. The snare is the best part, in my opinion. So what Phil Collins did on all that great 80s stuff he did is he had these like brassy or steely snare drums with a lot of crack to them, and then he layered electronic samples on top. So I have 2 Lindrum samples here. These are really fun. That I've stacked on top of that snare drum to replicate the Phil Collins effect completely. And I'll just show you, here's one of them super cranked in the mix. So that's obviously crazy. We're just going to tuck it down a little bit so it's not way up here. Although that is fun. Right about there. There's the other one. Oops. Here's the other one. Little click. I'm going to bring that down a little bit. That's how we're getting that Phil Collins vibe. I want it to be subtle, just like it was for Phil Collins, if you could call that subtle. So that's the kit. Let's go into the individual tracks here. So I have a Neve on the kick. I'm pushing the Neve just a little bit. I don't want it to be too spongy. So I have this dialed at 5. I'm focusing on the high-end click over here. See, not too clicky, not too modern. Pushing a little bit in the mid-range here too. And what I like about the Neve is you just move it around until you like how it sounds. You don't need to overthink it, right? Let's see where we want to put our low shelf. I definitely want to be bringing out some of the body of this kick drum. We're going to do a high pass at 50. I'm actually going to take that off. We're going to do a high pass later, cheat with the Pro Q4. I just think it'll work out better for us in the end. And then that's running into an 1176. That 1176 has relatively fast attack, letting the transients in still, 4-to-1 ratio, medium release. And we're pushing it decently hard up to like 7 decibels of gain reduction. Another thing you could do, and I think we will just for fun here, is you could add a second stage of vintage compression. I don't know if people did this, but I was tinkering with it and I liked how it sounded. So I got the TubeTech CL1B here. This actually, the analog version of this came out in 1987. Close enough, I think, to say that it fits the bill for the eras we're referencing here. I'm gonna dial this threshold just a tiny little bit, just to control a little bit of that drum stuff. I think that sounds good right there. The last thing that I wound up doing on this project is that boom on the kick actually starts to become overwhelming when we start layering our plates and all the other stuff on top of this. So I have this transient shaper where I'm just pulling the sustain down a bit and pushing the attack a bit so that we're getting more punch and faster decay. Subtle, but it matters in the mix. So let's leave the kick alone for now. Let's go into the snare. I think that electronic symbol is just a little too obvious. Let me pull that down a little. This might be a little high tune too. Okay, so let's mess with the EQ and the Neve here. This is how I had it set up. I think I'm actually going to change this a little bit. Let's start down here with the fundamental. I'm going to just take these to 0. So I want to boost the fundamental. Let me go ahead and high pass this, or low pass this at 160. Oh, what am I doing? I'm doing this in the kick. That's not what I meant to do. Let's get you back where we like you. Okay, like that. Now let's mess with the snare. Proper. So I'm going to pull up the Neve, dial this in a little bit. That high shelf feels aggressive. I'm sure I had a reason for that. We'll come back to it later when that reason pops up. Yeah, maybe it pops up right now. So I'm liking the crack I'm getting from that. Let's go into the compressor. Gonna push this compressor pretty hard again, just like the kick. We'll do like 5 to 7, maybe even 10 decibels of gain reduction. It's really more appropriate to the era to go a little lower, so we'll try and peak at 7. I'm actually gonna do something that I didn't do when I worked this out before and put the TubeTech on here as well. I've just decided recently that I love this compressor. Let's just do like a little tickle here on the gain reduction. See, it's slow, so it kind of gets out of control really fast. I'm going to keep it in check there. Where was that roll where we were hitting it real hard? I know we're hitting it hard here. Okay, I'm feeling good about that. I'm actually going to maybe leave this alone for now. We'll come back to it when we need to later. We're just moving quickly through these. So toms, I know we got some toms here in the chorus. Same deal with the toms, Neve into 1176, pushing just 5. Maybe let's try 10. I think I like 10 better on the Neve. Here's the settings on the EQ, putting a high pass at, 80, I guess. Clearing some room out of the rumble on those toms. Hitting them pretty hard with the compressor, and I'm going to throw the TubeTech over here too. I might wind up turning all these off, and that might be why they're off right now, but let's just play with it. See, because like what I love, if you go listen to the drums on like British Steel, they're way up here, like in your face. They're not way down low end like modern. They're like active in these higher frequencies, and they really just get like right up in your face. And this compressor's helped me do that. Also, you can hear that these are gluing in really nicely, right? So let's go ahead and add the hats. Got some close mics on the hi-hats. Oh, one other thing just to pull up quickly on Superior Drummer. So, you know, I have like every expansion pack for Superior Drummer, which is a nice advantage. But even if you don't have that, if you're able to get Superior Drummer, if you're even able to get a cheaper one, every single one of these has this option to actually independently route the microphones here out to different channels in your DAW. For some reason, all these drum VSTs want you to mix the drums in their app, but I just hate that, right? So I have all these drums routed out to these channels. And what that means is instead of one track that says drums, I have all these independent tracks that I can work. So that's why I'm doing it this way. Gives me a lot more control. So let's do the hats. The hi-hats, way splashy, harsh, right? We don't want to run those through the Neve because they're going to really focus that harshness. So instead, we're running these through an API 560. So I've done some light EQ in here, rolling off pretty aggressively. There's not a whole lot going on with close mic cymbals under, call it 400. And I want to be, if this was, you know, in a live drum context, I want to be cutting out that kick and snare that are sitting underneath it. So, so that's what I've done with these cymbals. I have the SSL console, the 4000E pulled up here, you know, cheating a little bit on the 70s vibe, but fits well with the 80s. So I have, you know, just let's do some like light EQ work in here. Where do I want to, where's my high pass? Here we go. So I'm going to high pass this like crazy, or low pass this rather like crazy. Bring the high pass, let's see, down around here. Because all this stuff that we're working through, the references were recorded to tape, there's a lot of high-end roll-off when you record to tape, which is why I'm rolling off the high-end here. So these sound pretty good. I do want some musical sheen, though, and the Pultec, that, you know, so we got Neve, we got 1176, and we got Pultec. These are going to be all over the place, that and tape, all over the place on this project. The Neve has this beautiful upper register here. So like, look at, if I boost it at 16, even though we just low passed up there, you're still getting this like tinsely, twinkly sound out of the cymbals that I really love. I'm also hearing some harshness here. That's probably what this is. Yeah. So we're just going to dip out that. It's a little too crispy up here. So we're going to dip that out in the hi-hats. All right. So let's move to the overheads. Here we have our overheads, and you know, although the 80s were really verby, and we're going to capture that verb on the kit, the actual individual tracks should be relatively dry. This sounds pretty dry. It's not compressed and getting really in your face. It's, you know, going through the API, not the Neve on the overheads. And I believe I put a high shelf here on the overheads as well. So not doing a ton here, just a little boost at 10K to capture some of that, like, you know, twinkly stuff. Let's see how this stuff is starting to sound together now. Something in this snare is bothering me. Did I fix it here? No, I did the opposite. And you know what it is? It's right over here. Getting a little too much paper there. Maybe a little too much something over here too that I don't like. Where is that? So I'm just dipping things out with Pro Q 4. You know, don't necessarily need exactly these settings, but this is the process that I think is good to follow. I'm going to go back to the Neve. I want to do as much heavy lifting in the Neve as I can. That actually sounds better over there. What if I go really hard on this? Okay, it sounds good to me. Oh, one other thing that we should just do real quick while we're here. Since Phil Collins is the inspiration for the snare, I've got this guy going. So here we have a little plate, great plate reverb plugin from Sound Toys. I use as much Sound Toys stuff as I can. It's really good. This plate gives me the option to, and you know what? We're going to get rid of this plate actually, and we're going to replace it with Super Plate so I have control, same company. I want control over that pre-delay. And then I'm going to tell you exactly what we're doing here. So let's get the pre-delay. Okay. Let's see what this does. I want that delay kicking in just after the transient. So we're still getting an unprocessed transient out of it. And then the other thing that I have here is this noise gate. So we're going to dial this up a little bit just until it starts closing. See if we can get that sweet spot. There we go. So that is the Phil Collins vibe right there. He's got gated reverb, right? So we're doing a pretty aggressive reverb, and then we're gating it so that it's clamping shut and shutting that reverb tail off pretty quickly. That's, if you go listen to the 80s stuff, you're gonna hear that all over the place, right? So that's the 80s from a Phil Collins perspective. We also want the 80s from a Metallica perspective. So that's why we have this ungated plate right next to it. So we kind of have a wet dry knob for whether we want a noise gate on our plate, right? I think I like that. That sounds good to me. And let's go ahead and throw that plate around some other places here. So we definitely want it on the toms. A little too much. There we go. I think we want it on the room. Plate reverb is everywhere on the albums that are inspiring this work that we're doing right here. Too much. The only problem with, I'm actually going to take it off the overheads. The problem with putting it on the overheads is it's grabbing the kick too, and we don't want that. So, you know, overheads, that's pretty much it. Just EQ. You see, I'm not doing a whole lot on these channels. So now let's go to the rooms. We're going through the SSL again here because the Neve just is a little too crazy. You can see that I'm boosting here at 200. I want to be getting the fundamental frequency of the snare where I can. I have a cut here at around 800. I think this is probably for like boxiness. Yep. What do we got here? Nothing and nothing. So we're getting a lot of color, not a ton of EQ, and that's fine. For the bus compression, or the rooms compression rather, rooms are very important, especially in the 1980s. What sounds like reverb in a lot of cases is actually just room sound captured by mics, right? So you want to crush the rooms so you can bring that sound forward and glue the song together. That's why I have 20-to-1, the most aggressive ratio in the 1176, and you know, a ton of gain reduction, right? Snare's a little too crazy. Let's bring it back to earth. Still not happy with this. I need some cracks somewhere in here, and I don't want it to be too high. Maybe just boost the fundamental a bit. Interesting. See, it sounds fine in solo. Maybe I just need to bring my sample down a little bit. Maybe it's the sample that's getting too aggressive. That sounds better. We're back in Phil Collins territory. I am going to do my first cheat move here and clean up a little bit of this kick. It's just a little too all over the place. So I'm going to cut some rumble out here with Pro Q4. You can go a little higher on the rumble with kick in this era because it wasn't super bass heavy. Looks like the fundamental's a little out of control. I'm going to dip that down, and maybe I don't need this at all. Yeah, I don't want that tubby thing. Pull that down. Take a little bit out here. And then let's put a low pass. Call it like right there. Okay, so I think we're in more reasonable territory with the kick. Now let's go ahead and use that kick to work on our bass. So the tone target for the bass, I had two. The first is trying to get the tone from the Black Album, Jason Newsted's bass playing on that. And what he did is he ran the bass through 3 preamps. He had the SVT Pro, which I have here. SVT or SVTR, I don't know, whatever this model is. This is the one that he had. And then that was going into a Neve. So we have our Neve. And you can see I'm just using the Neve for color here. I'm not actually doing anything with the EQ. I'm going to do most of that from the Ampeg. Then he had a second preamp. So this is the Ampeg, by the way. That's Ampeg through Neve. No EQ yet. Sounds, you know, a little bit clickier than I think we want, but it also has a little bit of that Enter Sandman vibe. wrong one. That's why. Here we go. There it is. There's the round bottom I was looking for. So I'm going to push the bass a bit here. Channel 2. Ultra low engaged. Ultra high not engaged. We just want to do a little grit work there, but nothing crazy. So the second one, this is the second preamp. I don't remember what it was, but I didn't have it. Couldn't find it any way to replicate it digitally. However, there's this Dark Glass Ultimate plugin from, what do you call it? Neural DSP, which obviously makes incredible stuff. And this I feel like is perfect for that pick attack or finger attack that you get so much of on the Black Album. See? This is just that attack, right? Those two together sound like this. And then the last thing that he had was just a DI. So he just had a DI running straight into the interface. And for this, I just added some compression with 1176. So we kind of have like a bass guitar, single bass guitar here. To give it the character that it has, I did a couple things here. So in the studio, again, you'd be running that right into a compressor. So we have some gentle compression here, 4 decibels of compression. I'm actually going to move this to comp 2. And the reason I'm doing that is so that we have exactly the same compression hitting the bass guitar as we have on the drums. So that's going to help them glue together a little bit, right? If you listen to the kick and the bass, that's why I have the kick soloed. It's like I'm trying to find that glue. So the next thing I did is I added a little more compression here with the LA2A. I really only want this to be like 2 decibels of gain reduction. That's just a little bit more glue, a little bit more analog. I'm going really heavy with the glue type stuff on this one. And then, neglected to mention on the drum bus. So we have our compressor, and we of course have to print it to tape. So let's just listen to the drum bus, and then we'll come back and do the exact same thing on the bass bus. So here on the drum bus, we have some good compression going. We need to now print this to tape. So this is the Studer A800 plugin. This is the most faithful recreation I found of the Studer sound. It's one of the most famous tape sounds in the world. And tape is beautiful. It's got like magnetic, gooey vibe to it that you know when you hear it. It's going to be subtle here because we're going to stack a ton of tape. So turn this on. If you want to hear it not be subtle, I'll push it for you. Oh, we're clipping. Here it is pushed. So it sounds cool, but way too much when we start stacking everything together. So I'm going to just dial this volume up a little bit, and I'm going to push the input here until I'm getting like, maybe 5, 10 max decibel notches on my VU meter here. Cymbals are coming in too hot. It's my rooms. So we're getting way too much cymbal in the rooms. I'm going to cheat on the rooms and dip some of that out. That's probably what I was doing here. Yep. I'm going to get rid of some of this with Pro Q4. Let's get rid of the mud down here too. I have no problem making aggressive cuts like this. A lot of people don't like it for some reason, but I feel like that's just like more sensible drum room sound. Dial down the compression a little bit. Do something different this time around. Let's try 8-1. It's just getting those cymbals so heavy. Tiny bit more click on the kick. We're moving things around on the fly. This is kind of how it always is. Little click up here, maybe up here too. A little too much Neve. I'm going to just put this on 0 and just get the transformer color with no overdrive, or with no drive. To me, that sounds better. Something about this snare still isn't quite working for me, so that's probably why I have this saturator. So I'm going to saturate this a little bit to get a little more snap out of the snare. So I'm using Decapitator. This, I think, is period specific or period appropriate, because all of these are emulating different console colors that did exist at the time. So one of these is tape, probably the T. N is the Neve. A, I think, is maybe SSL. Can't remember exactly, but I know that I like how they sound, and they're all allowed within the parameters of this project. So I'm going to go with like a bit of a darkening tone here on the snare. All right, I think I finally like the snare. Let's bring that up a little bit. Too much. Okay, all right, back to the bass. So now we got our individual tracks running through the things that we want them running through. Let me just like mess around with this a little bit. So the SVT is again doing the heavy lifting on the tone here, so I'm just gonna spend a little extra time and attention here. I'm gonna do a high pass at 80. Stuff was high passed higher in those days than it is today, and that's okay. No, I don't want to pan you. It sounds like it's gluing in now. I am going to put the Neve on 0 again on this one, because that sounds right. We're still getting tone by running through the Neve. So, all right, let's dial the dark glass. I think we might actually already be dialed. So this is, yep, so I have these settings left in here before. If you're using this pedal, here's the settings I'm using. What I'm going for is just a tiny little bit of drive, just to like really bring those fingers out. I have the kind of high shelf engaged using this grunt switch. There's this attack thing that I think I want to be going, want that going flat. You have a blend knob. You get to pick where you're focusing the low mids. So right here we have them at, what is that, 1200? We think we actually want them at 1000. Let's bring that bass up a little. And then we're just making sure that we have sure 57s on the cab, and we do. Okay, so now let's bring the DI in. So we just got a DI into a Neve, or no Neve actually, just DI into compressor. I think that actually doesn't even need an EQ. Okay, that sounds good to me. So at the bus level, we have our Chandler limiter that we just looked at a minute ago. We have the LA2A on top of that. And then we're gonna add our nice trusty tape in there, because we're putting tape on every single bus. Let's make sure that these are glued. Let's listen to the kick in the bass. Something's giving this too much grit. It might be over here. Let's pull back on this bass knob in the MPEG. That's better. Okay, got our tape. What is this Pro Q thing doing? Oh, I'm doing a little dip here. So let's figure out why I did that. I'm actually going to get rid of it. And then we're going to start to do some of the surgical stuff that the guys couldn't do in the 70s. But it's okay, because I think we're largely staying right on the money. So got Pro Q4 pulled up. You can see I'm dipping where the bass is spiking and vice versa. So I got a cut around like 100, 200 range. That's where the bass is loud. I'm going to dip the bass where the kick is loud and just give them space for each other, right? So that's bass and kick. That's full drums and kick. Full drums and bass. We're moving in the right direction. Let's talk about rhythm guitars. So quickly on the tone for the rhythm guitars, I had two targets I was after here. One is the Van Halen Brown sound, which we should be able to hear more audibly here in this chord section. And the other is Kill 'Em All. So the first Metallica record before they started getting super scooped. I reamped through an AXFX 3 because amp sims just aren't as good. The AXFX 3 sounds to me exactly like the real amps. We have these real amps at Very Friendly Studios, but Live Room is still getting built. So we're not using them today. We're reamping at home on the AXFX 3, and I think this sounds pretty damn good, personally. So here's the brown sound, and what I did is I took the Plexi, I took the 4x12 cab, I forget what speakers he had in there. It might have been Celestians. I just matched every single element of the amp block in AXFX 3, including the drive pedal and everything else. And I got as close as I could. It's running through a Neve. Here's the Van Halen tone. I think it sounds pretty good when those bright chords are getting hit. Here's the Kill 'Em All tone. It's going to be a little more dead. That was built for thrash. So I have those hard pan left and right. Not a whole lot going on here. Just Neve to start. I have this dialed a little bit. I'm pushing the high shelf a little bit. Nothing crazy. High pass at 80. I think I have the same high pass over here. Similar dial. Kill 'Em All is just not as bright. And I definitely feel the 70s vibe coming through. Hopefully you do too. I did notice with those two tones, though, that it was starting to get a little thin. So I added this third very modern rhythm guitar tone. This is reamped through a Diesel VH4 Plus, and this is going to sound a little more like modern metal. You're not going to notice it in the mix, though. It's just going to fill some of that stereo gap created by hard panning the guitars and fill some of that low end by having these kind of thinner rhythms. So that's obviously a much more modern guitar, but here's how it sounds all together. On the bus, I have the Studer tape, of course. Let's put the bass and the guitars together. One thing I should have said sooner, all I have engaged in my mix bus right now is a gain knob that's keeping me at about minus 6 dB coming into the mix bus. Pro Q4, I don't even know how to do the default in these new plugins. I just updated to Logic 12 and it like broke my brain in a million ways. Of course, I did that right before shooting this video. All I want to do right now, though, is just roll off the lows, everything under 25. Okay, then I have this maximizer. All this is doing is just catching peaks, so I'm not clipping like crazy while I film this video of true peak enabled. We'll come back to that maximizer later. Nothing else. I don't like to do top-down mixing because I like to get as much done with my tone and with my raw materials as I possibly can, rather than throwing a bunch of modern stuff on the mix bus that just uses algorithms to make it sound better. I am going to use some, but I try to avoid it. So that's all that. Let's get to the leads now. Leads come in around here on the chorus. Let's see what we got. Basically the same tones as the rhythms, except for I added this like painkiller style. So you can see I didn't do anything on these tracks other than the Neve, and I don't even know if I dialed. No, I didn't even dial the Neve in. Maybe I will a little bit here, just to say we did. We're gonna high pass this one at 160. We're doing that to leave room on the low end for those rhythm guitars. I don't want to go too high with the high shelf because I like the leads from this period to be pretty mid-forward. Okay, I'm just going to do exactly the same thing. You'll notice with the panning, so I'm going 50% on these kind of supporting lead tracks. I think of these as like supporting lead tracks and like lead tracks. Supporting lead tracks always going to be lower in the mix, panned at 50%. Lead tracks are panned at like 33%. The reason I did that is we got the bass going right down the middle. We got one rhythm right down the middle. We have two rhythms way out to the sides of the stereo field. And now we're kind of just filling like the arms of a clock, all the space in the stereo field in between. And that should create like a nice surrounding wall of sound. So on the lead bus, didn't do much at the track level. Let me just dial this second lead. But all I have on the lead bus is a G bus compressor gluing it in and the tape that we have on every other bus. And at this point, ideally, you're noticing that all those neaves are starting to add up, and it sounds like maybe we're starting to approximate the 1970s a little bit here. Check it out. I hear it. Hopefully you hear it at home as well. We also have this solo bus, which is bussed into the lead bus. So we're not going to do a whole lot with it. We don't want to be stacking too much different stuff. I might even take the neaves out of this so that we don't have neave on neave on neave. Oh, you know what? Actually, we won't because we don't have it on the bus. I'm going to throw them back in there. All I really did here is mess with it a little bit. So I put these are 2 leads. Playing essentially, actually exactly the same thing. So I threw a flanger on one of them just to make it pop a little and left the other one with just the neave. So let's dial this. I mean, I think that sounds sick. Let's do the same thing over here. We lost our kick somehow. Tube tech might be killing it. And maybe that is why people don't do that with the tube tech. We'll see if we can get it back later. I'm going to boost a little on the clip. I'm going to throw a clipper on the drums. That's why I have this thing on standby. It's funny how I just did this and now I'm making every decision the same way again. So clipping is just going to create more headroom on the kick, on the overall drum bus. And instead of compressing and pushing peaks down, we're going to shave them off and create some musical saturation. So the drums are a little beefier. See if we need to carve any more over here. Sounds pretty good to me. Bass is sounding a little thin. Let's see. There we go. We had a little bit missing over there. Moving right along. Next, we have some gang vocals on here. So why am I getting some to the gang vocals? That's very interesting. Oh, there we go. Okay. So for the gang vocals, I've got a single gang vocal track from Andrew. He's wondering whether we want to keep it in the song or not, but wanted to make it feel gangier. So what I did is I replicated the gang vocal experience. So instead of having a group of people standing around a mic, I stood 1 take 4 feet back from the mic, 1 take right up on the mic, 1 take off to the left, 1 take off to the right. And I did 8 different positions until we got gang vocals that actually sound like a crowd in a room. And this is that. Sounds a little silly by itself, but let's hear it in the mix. Okay. We'll get to these lead vocals in a second. So all I did here is tape because it's a bus and neave, because I didn't want to put neave on every individual track and stack it up that much. So it's as if we're going through one single neave, right? Because we have people standing around one single mic. A little loud. Let's bring it down. Make a little space. I feel like 800 is like where the gang vocal gang sound kind of is. Yeah, a little boost brings it out. All right, let's hit the lead vocals. Want to be done in about 5 minutes here. So I'm just showing you templates that I've built. I literally just threw these templates that I built for other black metal projects onto the vocals because I wanted the vocals to have a black metal vibe. And so I'm going to undo these and then I'll bring them all back in. So first we have a pitch shifter. All this is doing is very gently, only 11 cents, pushing one of these vocal takes up, and then I'm going to push the other vocal take down. We have two vocal takes singing the same thing. We want to have that nice doubling effect that you hear on early Metallica records and basically anything from the 80s except for Slayer. So we have that. Then we have the Neve, which we've dialed a little bit. I'm going to play with it some more. Then we have an 1176. Then we have a tube tech. So let's just stack them in and see what they're doing.
Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch.
Let's turn all this stuff off. I'm just going to get back to the Studer, the Pultec, and the SSL, because that's what I would have in Abbey Road. No sounds yet. All right.
Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch.
So that's just through the Neve. That's just the pitch shift. Let's bring the Neve out.
Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch.
Now we got a Neve.
Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch.
Let's just find some spots we like in here.
Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch.
You can see I have a high pass at 180 here. I like to high pass the stuff pretty high because that's kind of the style of the time. I'm going to add some compression. 1176 again. Don't want to over compress it because I am gonna heavily compress the backing vocal. Let's see with the tube tech. That's too much. I'm actually not going to do the tube tech. So this is one of my favorite little things. So to get these kinds of vocals to sound the way I think they sound on the records I like the best, I like to boost, harsh resonant frequencies that everyone tries to cut because I think it makes it sound like the singer's at the bottom of a well. So here's an example of what I mean. We got a couple of them right here. I'm just going to boost them and you're going to hear the voice falling down the well.
Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch.
This is like conventional here.
Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch.
See, now we're in the well.
Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch. Drag
Maybe do a high shelf to make it audible.
Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch.
And you can just do crazy stuff with, like, look at this crazy boost. Because we're doing black metal. At least I think. I feel like that's the right vibe. Okay, now we need some grit. And let's see. We're not going to do that with the amp knob. I have this send that I use sometimes just for sending the voice through a guitar amp, which sounds crazy. We're not going to use it here, though. What do we got? Some parallel compression and saturation.
Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch.
So I'm doing this on sends instead of throwing the saturation right on the vocals because I think that I want to hear the clarity of those vocals. Like, the vocals are not over-compressed from the 70s and 80s.
Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch.
Amp knob again. We don't want that. Maybe some plate. Yeah, we got some plate.
Drag it, bitch. 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 Drag it, bitch.
I'm not using a de-esser. Not using a de-esser on vocals like this is a trick I learned from Dave Otero, and it's because S's sound more evil. It's like the sound a snake might make, so we're going to leave those in. We don't want that. We want this. This is a fun one. I'll just show you. Is it going to let me do that?
Drag it, bitch.
This is just a good way to totally destroy vocals. Little altar boy. You can mess with the pitch and the formant. I don't think we want that. Let's try and blend it in a little bit. See if it
Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch.
I don't think we need that. I don't think we really need much. Quarter note. Oh, slap. Perfect. Yeah, this is definitely key for 80s stuff.
Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch. Drag it,
I think we'll stop right there. Let's add the other vocal in. And on this one, I have the pitch shifter going down so that we're splitting the signal up a little bit. Similar kind of EQ.
Drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch.
I'm cutting more off the top, notching a little space here for the guitar. Renaissance Vocals is a really good vocal compressor because you just drag this thing down and it just makes vocals sound better. You just got one dial to worry about. I have some LA2A here.
Drag it, bitch, drag it.
2 decibels of gain reduction, some 1176 on top.
Drag it, bitch.
So we now have 3 stages of compression on this backup vocal. That's going to really just pin it in.
Drag it, bitch, drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch, drag it, bitch.
Just pin it in place. Let's boost some
Drag it, bitch, drag it, bitch.
some of that well stuff.
Drag it, bitch, drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch, drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch, drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch, drag it, bitch.
I mean, look, that is crazy. I think it sounds good though.
Drag it, bitch.
Let's level these out a little.
Drag it, bitch, drag it, bitch.
Let's send some slap for this guy too. You know what? Should have gone through this. Sorry. Where was I just messing with that? Yeah, there we go. So I also have 2 levels of, or no, I don't. I have, let me turn that off. I have 1 level of saturation here. Saturn 2 is a great saturator because you can focus it on specific frequency bands. So I'm just focused on the high end of this frequency on the backing vocals, everything above 2000. And I'm pushing this broken tube saturation setting there. Just to get extra crispy. Now this last one, Microshift, this is a great widening plugin from Sound Toys. Settings are here. They have this preset called background vocal thickener that just does exactly what it sounds like. Watch, I'm gonna solo this, leave the plugin off, and when I turn it on, you're gonna hear the vocal fly out to the sides.
Drag it, bitch, drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch, drag it, bitch. Drag it, bitch, drag it, bitch.
So it's just basically detuning 1/2 of the signal and delaying 1/2 of the signal, so it sounds like you're hearing 2. And now we have 3 voices where we used to have 2. And it sounds like this all together.
Drag it, bitch, drag it, bitch.
We're pretty close to done here. Have some Pultec on here. I'm doing this Pultec trick with the Pultec that I really like, where if you boost and attenuate the same low end frequency with a Pultec, it pushes up and down on the signal and compresses it in a really musical way. So check it out. You can hear the low end just jump into focus a little bit there. Boost down to 5K, maybe 8. I mean, this is another crazy boost. We're boosting 8 decibels at 8K. I think it sounds good though. Maybe I'm wrong. All right, I think we're gonna leave everything else alone. Oh, you know what? Let's have some fun with the rhythm guitars. I want to add some flange in here. Oh, I could do the parallel. So I have this auxiliary channel I sent the vocals to with all buttons in, 1176 compression, and with some heavy duty saturation. Sometimes it's nice to have a parallel bus of the rhythm guitar too, just to beef it up. Let's see. Actually, I don't think it's necessary here, but I am going to do that same Pultec trick on 100. We'll do boost and attenuate 2. That's just making it a little beefier. Let's give it a high shelf. Another really aggressive boost that I also think sounds good. I'm going to throw this multi-band compressor on the rhythm guitar. So what this is doing is we're focusing just on the bite zone on the rhythm guitar, and we're going to sidechain this to the lead guitar bus. Settings are here so that we can push down on the most present part of the rhythm guitars when the leads are there, just to give them a little room. Maybe we'll do the same thing on the vocals. Just want to make sure you can really hear those leads. We're going to be a lot narrower and more surgical here. What is the number for my lead bus? 4. 5 more minutes and we will be done. So now everything has space for everything else. And we are clipping our stereo bus, so let's fix that. Want to be coming into the mix bus with 6 decibels of headroom. So let's go through the mix bus. So we have gain has achieved that for us. We're going to hit this button to get out of here to make sure that our next plugin, which is Pro Q4, has unity. This little A does that so that the signal coming in is going to be the same as the signal going out so that we can keep that headroom for the rest of our process. Just do a little nip and tuck here. Okay, we're going to come back to that later. Next thing we're doing on the mix bus is we're going through a Lindell 50 preamp. And this is really important because we're now going through the last stage of summing. We're summing from those individual tapes recorded at the bus level to the mix bus to put it in as 2 stereo buses on the left and right. This is a summing analog console, meaning it's designed specifically for combining those channels and printing them to those 2 different tapes. I chose Lindell 50 because it's very similar to Neve, and it's just going to add a little more color and glue this thing in. You can see very subtle. Because I have my maximizer on, I can see that we're still in exactly the right zone for the headroom here. After that, we're running through our mastering tape. So we have a different type of tape, the ATR 102. This is classic, amazing sounding tape that was used for printing the actual mix bus. So it's not the same tape as the instrument buses, and that's by design. This is how they did it. I'm going to toggle between 15 and 30 until I find the one I like. It's usually one of those 2 tape speeds. Just a little something. Love that. 15 is the right speed. You can hear it's a little more aggressive. Okay, next thing we're adding is our first stage of bus compression. I'm using the Audioscape MK609 modeled on the Neve 33609. We're keeping it in the family with Neve. And I'm going to do very gentle ratio, 1.5 to 1. I'm going to do very, very fast recovery, and I'm just going to play with the threshold until we're getting like 1 decibel gain reduction. Super gentle. Just gluing stuff together a little bit. It's making the kick pop out though, so we're going to work on that. One more click on this. Okay. That feels good to me. Real quick, let me just play with the bass, make sure that we're in good spot here. Feels good to me. All right, next, back to our trusty Pultec. We're going to do the trick again to beef up the low end here where we're boosting and cutting on 30. We'll do 30. Let's see if it's 30 hertz or 60 we want, but we're doing 1 decibel boost and cut. And then I'm going to boost the air shelf a little bit to brighten this up. So off and turn it on, and the low end should jump into focus. made the kick pop out a little. Let's duck it down again. Okay. There we go. So that's our mix bus EQ. I have this one modern plugin that I often use. I don't know if I'm going to use it here. Let's just see if it sounds good. I always have this on 15 and 5, and it basically just decides which frequencies it should boost and cut and does it for you. So let's see what it does. Not going to use it. A little too polite. Now we're going to get ready for our last stage of compression, which is like the mastering. You know, back in the day, they didn't have like brick wall limiting. They would just use a second compressor that the mastering engineer would throw on there. But first I want to make some more headroom because I do want this to be as loud as modern music, even though it's not going to sound like it. So Clipper's cutting the peaks off and just giving us a little more headroom. Now we're going to go into our last stage of compression. I'm going to use the Fairchild 670, a beautiful piece of analog gear that sounds very authentic here with the United Audio. Push the input gain as far as I can until the needle jumps. It didn't jump, so now I'm going to tinker with the threshold, and I just want the needle to jump a little bit. See how our solo sounds. So solo bus, let me just hit these real quick. This is a solo bus that is bussed into the lead bus. All I have on here is Neve, and then the other one is Neve and a flanger to give it some of that 80s, flavor. And on the wet effects side, I have some plate and I have some quarter note delay. Sounds good to me. I'm going to just beef up the mid-range on the rhythm a little bit. All right, last thing we're going to do is pull up that maximizer we looked at before. I have True Peak limiting enabled, -1 decibels. This is going to make it easier to put it on TikTok and stuff like that. And, I'm going to push closer to the ceiling until I start hitting the limiter, and I'm going to pull back on the output to make sure that we're not clipping here. So I'm going to finesse that later to get it to a higher loudness level. But, for first pass, we're coming up an hour. I'm going to call it here. I think this sounds pretty good. Let's go ahead and go back to the demo, A/B it, make sure that we're happy with the updates we made to what I think is a kick-ass song by Grim Discipline. That's the first pass on Dragon Bitch, and I'm pretty happy with where it ended up. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are. If you liked this video, please like the video. It'll make it easier for people like you to find content like this. Please also consider subscribing to the channel. If you do that, you'll be notified whenever I do videos like this. So that is how to mix classic metal to replicate an analog signal chain in the box. I hope you enjoyed it. Please definitely go check out Grim Discipline on Bandcamp. Absolutely kick-ass songs. Very, very talented musician in Andrew. And we will catch you on the flip side.